Good day, everyone. Welcome to the upcoming webinar, which is going to be taken on the topic Worst Accident of a Chemical Industry Bhopal Gas Tragedy, presented by Professor Alok Mitchell, and which is being organized by Enliven Archive and Gnome Publications Open Access Journals. Before we get into the session, I would like to cordially invite Professor Alok Mittal, and also I would like to have a warm welcome to all the attendees who have been participating for the webinars and who are now participating in the webinar. So once we start the session, I'll just have a brief introduction of Dr. Alok Mittal. Dr. Alok Mittal is working as Professor of Chemistry at Maulana Azad National Institute of Technology, Bhopal, and possesses a long academic research and administrative experience. He has received distinction to become Clarivate Analytics highly cited researchers of the year 2018, and he is all amongst only 10 Indian researchers out of top 4,000 most influential scientists of the world. He has published more than 100 research papers in the journals of high impact factors and authored several books. His papers have been cited more about 12,000 times, and his present H factor is 50, which is very high. Dr. Mittal earned high academic degree, Doctor of Science, on the thesis related to environmental issues from Jeevani University, Gwalior. He is an alumnus of University of Roorkee, presently IIT Roorkee, and obtained MSc and PhD degrees from there. He also contributes his expertise as reviewer for many international journals of environmental field and has guided several PhD on the topics related to environmental problems. His research field focuses on the removal of various inorganic and organic pollutants like metal ions, dyes, etc. from wastewater through absorption and photocatalytic degradation. Based on his expertise in the environmental field, several highly reputed journals have nominated him as editor, manuscript editor, and member of their editorial board. His research contributions in the field of ecology and environment has also attracted considerable attention from the Ministry of Environment, Government of India, and worked as member of state level expert appraisal committee constituted by Government of India to assess state level environmental impact assessment authority Madhya Pradesh. At present, he is also member Board of Governors, Indian Institute of Science, Engineering and Research, Bhopal. He also works as board member and member board of studies of various universities. He has been a recipient of prestigious Boys Cast Fellowship of Government of India to carry out postdoctoral research in University of Dundee, United Kingdom. With all these credentials under his credit, he is a multifaceted personality, successful academician, significant researcher, and possesses a wide administrative experience. He is one of the editorial board members in Gnome Publications. We are very proud to have him as on our board, and we are very happy to have a collaboration with him. I pass on this session to Dr. Alok Mittal, I would like all the participants to kindly raise your questions once the session is completed. You can raise your questions either by raising hand in the right hand side panel or in the chat box. Thank you everyone for again attending this session. I would like to now pass this particular session to Dr. Mittal. Dr. Alok Mittal, you can now just go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Pawan. Namaste, everyone who is joining this webinar from India and abroad. The topic of my third webinar is worst accident of a chemical industry, which is Bhopal gas tragedy. Under this topic, I'm going to speak on the biggest and most unfortunate industrial accident which happened in this country about 35 years back, and unfortunately it happened in my city, Bhopal. My today's lecture is based on my article which published in 2016 in Toxicological and Environmental Chemistry Journal. And in 2019, the editor-in-chief of the journal, Hartmut Frank, invited me to deliver this talk, the same talk, in his university. I think before I talk about this tragedy, I should introduce you about the state of Madhya Pradesh, and its capital city Bhopal. The literal meaning of Madhya Pradesh is central province. Madhya Pradesh is one of the 28 states of the country and situated in the central part of the country. Madhya Pradesh came into existence in 1956 and was born from the state Madhya Kshetra. I think all youngsters should know that Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, they were a part of the Maharashtra, and Madhya Pradesh were known as Madhya Kshetra earlier. And then in 1956, Madhya Pradesh came into existence. And in the same year, Bhopal was nominated as its capital. In the year 2000, Madhya Pradesh was bifurcated and another state, Chhattisgarh, was born, which is almost about 135,000 square kilometer area. Madhya Pradesh, its present area is about 300 square kilometer, and its population is about 75 million, that is 7.5 crore. Area wise, it is second largest state of the country, and by population, it is fifth largest in the country. The state contains almost 90,000 square kilometer area covered with forest, and there are at least 10 national parks, 3 biosphere reserves in this state. Madhya Pradesh also contains several natural reserves, and mining is one of the major income source of the state, and we have mines of diamond, coal, granite, aluminum, iron, copper, zinc, and many other types of metals and stones. As far as agriculture is concerned, Madhya Pradesh is one of the largest producers of wheat and soya bean. The land of Madhya Pradesh is also famous for classical Indian music, and 2 legendary classical singers of old time, Tansen and Baiju Bawra, who were contemporary singers of late 15th and early 16th century. They also lived in this state. A long ancient history is associated with this land, and there are many historical monuments, including 3 World Heritage Sites, which are declared as World Heritage Site by UNESCO: the Khajuraho Group of Monuments, Buddhist monuments at Sanchi, and rock shelters of Bhimbetka. They also belong to this state. As far as Bhopal is concerned, Bhopal was founded in 11th century by Raja Bhoj. The modern city, Bhopal city, was established by a Pashtun soldier of Mughal army named as Dost Muhammad Khan, who ruled Bhopal from the year 1672 to 1728. In the year 1880, Bhopal became a princely state after signing a treaty with East India Company, and from 1819 to 1926, for almost 107 years, the state was ruled by 4 lady rulers, means 4 lady rulers, the Begums. They ruled this state for 107 years. They ruled this state of Bhopal, the Bhopal Nawab Kshetra, for 107 years. It was certainly a unique phenomenon in those days. The first male ruler, the Nawab of Bhopal, was Mr. Hamidullah Khan, who was maternal grandfather, that is Nana, of late Mansoor Ali Khan Patodi, who is father of Saif Ali Khan, who was father of Saif Ali Khan. Bhopal is capital of Madhya Pradesh since 1956. It is known as City of Lakes, as many natural and artificial lakes surround this city. It is one of the greenest city of the country. Area of Bhopal is about 300 square kilometer, and its present population is about 2 million, that is 20 lakh. It is a very well connected city which is connected by air, train, and roads. City is popular tourist destination. Out of 3 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, 2 are situated near Bhopal. The Buddhist monument at Sanchi, which is about 90 kilometers from here in the northeast, and the rock shelters of Bhimbetka, which is almost 50 kilometers southeast of the city. In addition, Bhopal has got a very huge lake, which is known as Bhojtal, and it is one of the biggest attraction of the city. The catchment area of this Bhojtal is 361 square kilometer, which we call Bada Talab, and surface area is about 31 square kilometer. Its maximum length is 31.5 kilometer and width is 5 kilometer, and its full tank water level is 1666.8 feet. There is a unique museum which is known as Museum of Men, Manav Sangrahalaya. This is also situated near the lake. The Manav Sangrahalaya depicts the culture, living of all tribes of this country and situated in almost 250 acres of land. Then we also have a national park which is called the Open Zoo, which is also situated near the bank of the lake. Now, with this background of Bhopal, let me now talk about the industrial tragedy which happened to the city. Bhopal was a silent city till 1984, and then suddenly on the night of 2nd and 3rd December 1984, the city attracted international attraction when a pesticide manufacturing unit, Union Carbide India Limited, situated in the heart of city, leaked around 40 tons of deadly toxic gases containing methyl isocyanate and killed thousands of people. This accident is considered the worst industrial disaster of the world. Official toll is about 4,000, but people claim much and much more, estimating to several thousands. The impact of disaster continues even till today in terms of psychology and neurological disabilities, blindness, vision, breathing, birth disorders, etc. And you will be surprised to know that during COVID-19 pandemic, the city so far witnessed 35 deaths, out of which 20 are gas victims. Now, let me tell you about the location of this industry and something about this city. As I told you, the city has got a huge lake. This is the lake which you can see. This is the water body which we call Bada Talab, the upper lake, and then there is a small one here. This is called Chota Talab, lower lake. So we have upper lake and lower lake, Bada Talab and Chota Talab. And on the northern side of it, of this lake, you have Union Carbide. The aerial distance would be about 4 kilometers. And this side, there is a railway station. I will show you in the next slide. And there is a bridge over which is bifurcating Chota Talab and Bada Talab. And in fact, on this side is the new Bhopal, and that side is the old Bhopal, the walled city. The Nawabi city is on that side, and this side is the new city. And there is a Birla Mandir, and my institute, Maulana Azad National Institute of Technology, it is on this side near this Kalia Sod Dam. So this is the one a bigger picture which I'm now zooming in, and here you can see a Union Carbide plant where this tragedy exactly happened, and there you can see the railway station, Bhopal railway station. There you can see, and there are 2 railway lines passing. If you can see, there is a triangle here. There are 2 railway lines passing, one going towards Delhi and another going towards Indore or Ujjain, or you may say Mumbai. And this one this side it goes to the railway station, and beyond it goes to the south. So all southbound trains, they pass through Bhopal. And if you see, there is a very dense locality around this industry. I will tell you about the story, how this dense population came here. But this is, here you can see there is a large number of houses over here, and there is a lot of human habitation around this Union Carbide plant. In a closer look, a more closer look, here you can see this is the railway line passing just near the Union Carbide, and this is the latest situation of Union Carbide, where you can see a lot of houses here, and you can see there is, this is all, the company is sealed, it is closed, and this is all abandoned, you may say an abandoned industry, but this is the main unit of Union Carbide Bhopal. Now let me first start with the idea that I'll give you a background that how this accident happened, and let me first tell you that what are the circumstances under which this industry, this pesticide unit was installed in Bhopal. 1960 was the year of beginning of Green Revolution in India, as India was on the brink of mass famine. To increase the yield of crop, famous agriculturist M.S. Swaminathan suggested to adopt modern agricultural techniques, which mainly include use of high yielding varieties of seeds, chemical pesticides, and fertilizers. Till 1966, the domestic production of pesticides in India was only 14,000 metric tons. And looking at the size of the country and looking at the agricultural needs of the country, this figure was quite inadequate. Thus, the demand of chemical fertilizers and pesticides abruptly increased. And in order to take the advantage of the growing Indian market, a US-based company, Dow Chemicals, thought to capture the Indian agricultural market. But government of India was not allowing any foreign industry to set up in India with 100% shares. Hence, in 1966, a subsidiary company of Dow Chemicals Union Carbide Company was registered under the name of UCIL, that is Union Carbide India Limited, by adopting the guidelines of Indian Company Act, where UCC, that Union Carbide Company, reduced its shares from 100 to 60%, and a new product division of UCC, that is UCIL, Union Carbide India Limited, was born. Now, initially, UCIL was bringing its technical grade concentrates of the pesticides from United States and selling these in India. Since their products were giving good results and good profit, and there was good demand of these products, UCIL decided that they should start production of their products in India, and therefore they applied for the license. In 1968, necessary approvals were granted by Government of India to UCIL to start a fertilizer and pesticide formulation plant, and they decided the place to start this establishment in Bhopal. Bhopal, because it was under government of Madhya Pradesh, so government of Madhya Pradesh allotted them a huge land in the Kali Parade area of Bhopal. This area was about 2 miles from Bhopal railway station. I just told you that on the north side of the Bhopal railway station, this area, that area is called Kali Parade area, and this area was also under industrial zone. At the time of population of Bhopal was almost, at the time when this installation was done, when this industry was installed, the population of Bhopal was just about 300,000, that is 3 lakh, and this Kali Parade area was very less populated. The UCIL plant, that United Carbide India Limited plant, started operations in 1969 by making pesticides, but were not carrying out any production, rather bringing chemical concentrates of the pesticides from United States. And in Bhopal, they were just diluting them into desired products. Government of India objected to this, and they objected on their dilution procedures and insisted USIL to stop the dilution and start manufacturing pesticides in the Bhopal plant. Since many ingredient to manufacture their pesticide was alpha naphthol, so company decided to manufacture alpha naphthol first in the Bhopal unit. But unfortunately, they tried several attempts, but every time their attempts were failed, and company they lost a lot of money. In 1975, there is permission was granted to USIL to produce 5,000 tons of a carbide pesticide. And the story of carbide pesticide is that when company was trying to manufacture alpha naphthol here, in that same time they found that a carbide pesticide, which they call Salvin, I will tell you later, it started gaining its popularity in the agriculture market. So company then requested Government of India to allow them to manufacture carbide pesticides in Bhopal unit, and in 1975 this permission was given. In 1978, United Carbide and United Carbide India Limited decided to produce Sevin, that is a carbide pesticide, which is used on cotton and other crops, by adopting economic and efficient MIC process. And the process was quite economic and efficient, where methylamine was reacting to phosgene and producing an intermediate product, methyl isocyanate, and methyl isocyanate on reaction with alpha naphthol was forming one carbide, which is a trade name given by UCC, that is Sevin. The new MIC manufacturing unit of USIL was built as per the design and specifications of UCC, that is Union Carbide Company, methyl isocyanate unit of West Virginia, United States. And company profits were gaining so much that they even anticipated in scaling up to economically competitive methyl isocyanate production volumes. Now it is pertinent to note that in 1976, MP Town and Country Planning Board classified this Kali Parade area as general industry. And USIL Bhopal plant being hazardous industry because they were producing Sevin, which was involving methyl isocyanate, so it was considered as hazardous industry. So it was supposed to be shifted to Bhopal's new hazardous industrial zone, which was created under new master plan of the city of Bhopal, but authorities allowed it to stay in Kali Parade location. By the year 1980, when USIL started making profits from Sevin, a new problem cropped up. The synthetic pesticide pyrethroids, they came into the market, and most of the Indian farmers started preferring this new product as it was economic as well as safer than Sevin. This once again gave a jolt to the USIL as demand of the Sevin in the market reduced. Now, because the production of methyl isocyanate at Bhopal plant was not economically viable to UCC, because Sevin was not a very popular product amongst the farmers. Therefore, USIL insisted to import UCC, the Union Carbide, their principals, they asked USIL to import this material, the methyl isocyanate, from West Virginia plant, but Government of India did not grant permission for the procurement of MIC from United States. Now, let me first tell you that in 1984, before accident happened, what was the situation outside the UCL? What I have divided my lecture. First, I will tell you what was that situation outside the UCL. Then I will tell you what was the situation inside the UCL, and then I will tell you what happened exactly on the night of the 2nd December 1984, and then I will tell you what happened post accident. So that is how I have decided my lecture. So far I have given you just a background that how this industry came to Bhopal, how this industry set up in Bhopal, and what were the problems which was faced by the UCIL till that time. From 1968 to 1984, the population of Bhopal town, which was estimated about 300,000, that is 3 lakh in 1968, it increased to 9 lakh, that is 900,000, that is almost threefold. The Kali Parade area, which is the main area where this industry was set up, its condition was pathetic, and which this area was quite unpopulated in 1968, but it became very thickly populated as shanty town in 1984. In April 1984, another unfortunate incident happened, that under political compulsions, MP government legalized the shanty town, the Jhuggis, situated at the periphery of UCIL plant, and granted dwellers certificate of ownership of the lands to the persons occupying all these Jhuggis. Then let us look at, before this accident, what was the condition inside the UCIL. Just now I told you what was the situation outside the UCIL, that the area became thickly populated and there were mainly Jhuggis or shanty town, and those shanty towns were given the permanent pattas to the persons who were occupying these. Now look at the situation inside the UCIL plant. Till 2nd December 1984, several minor accidents occurred in UCIL plant, which were mainly due to leakage of gases like phosgene, methyl isocyanate, hydrochloric acid, and chloroform, either alone or mixture. But most of these were within the campus. Minor damages were caused to the workers only. Some animals also died by drinking water from a stream of water which was just outside the plant, polluted by fluid runoff from the plant. However, on each occasion, plant authorities rescued themselves with excuses, and incidences were either hushed up or pardoned by warning. In 1982, a local journalist went inside the plant and wrote about the poor safety conditions of the plant and warned for the likelihood of a massive leakage. Since workers of UCIL also pointed out several violations of operation procedures and recommended necessary measures, when notices were issued to UCIL by MP State Pollution Control Board, the cause of emission was explained as carbon dioxide leakage only. And this report of UCIL was accepted without any doubt. What can be sensed here, that UCIL as well as local government authorities were not serious on the safety issues of the plant, and even a nexus cannot be denied. 1981 to 1984 were those years when UCIL was facing heavy financial crunches due to the reduction of market demand of 7. Thus, before 2 to 3 years of the disaster, the financial and administrative conditions of the USIL Bhopal unit were not in good shape. Due to weak demand of products, Bhopal plant was operating at 1/5 of its capacity, and UCC had already incurred huge losses of about $4 million in last 4 years. This led to the downsizing of the staff and ignoring the UCC guidelines, because when UCC was running a full-fledged plant in West Virginia, so they had a lot of guidelines. So as per their guidelines, 3 supervisors and 12 workers per shift was necessary, but only 1 supervisor and 6 workers were deputed in each shift of MIC unit of Bhopal. As layoffs and resignations were more frequent, morale of the staff constantly declined throughout these years, and experienced workers were replaced by less experienced workers. In October 1984, UCC also considered the idea to dismantle USIL Bhopal plant. And in fact, Dow Chemicals and UCC, they wanted to shift this unit either to Brazil or Indonesia. They even asked USIL authorities to drop feasibility study and cost estimation. But in the meantime, one more incident swiftly happened, and in a major decision, UCC shifted their plant manager, Warren Woomer, who was the last American employee of the Bhopal plant, and he was replaced by Jagannathan Mukund, an Indian citizen trained at West Virginia. Now, what have been the warnings of so it doesn't mean that UCC was silent on the issues. UCC was looking all what was happening in the USIL plant. So now let us discuss about what are the warning signs which UCC were giving. In 1984, an internal monitoring committee was formed by UCC, and they assessed that the gas chamber or gas scrubber was functioning very poorly. There were poor communications between production and maintenance teams, and safety meetings were not held at recommended frequency. That was the observation of the committee which was formed by the UCC, Union Carbide, their principles. From 7 to 22nd October 1984. Now, this date is very important. 22nd October is the date, and just think that after 40 days from here, on 2nd of December, this accident happened. So from 7th to 22nd October 1984, the available whatever phosgene and methylamine stock was there in the plant, that was used up to produce methyl isocyanate. And I told you methyl isocyanate is formed by reaction of methylamine and phosgene. So whatever material or whatever raw material was available, so that entire material was converted into methyl isocyanate on 22nd October. And then 40 tons of MIC and 20 tons, I think 20 tons of MIC was kept in 2 separate tanks. The plant was supposed to withdraw 1 ton MIC production unit and 1 ton MIC at a time for reacting with alpha naphthol to produce 7 during next 2 months. The storage tanks were isolated and the MIC production unit was shut down for the maintenance. So on 22nd of October 1984, the unit was shut down for maintenance, and just assume that methyl isocyanate were kept in 2 separate tanks. Now this is the schematic diagram showing various components of 7 production unit of USIL Bhopal. It is important to note that even on the ill-fated day, in ill-fated night of 2nd December 1984, the plant was not working and was shut down for maintenance, and I told you it was shut down for the last 40 days. If you see, there are three MIC storage tanks. One is E610, one is E611, and E619. It is the E610 where this one where the leak happened, and it was containing 40 tons, while the other one was containing 15 tons of I think 20 tons of MIC, and the third one E619 was empty. Then there is a refrigeration system. On the right hand side, you can see here, you can see where this system, which keeps the stored MIC at least reactive temperatures 0 to 5 degrees C, it was non-operative, and even the coolant Freon was shifted to some other plant. Then there was vent gas scrubber, which uses caustic soda to neutralize toxic gas which are exhausted from the plant, and this was also turned off, and it was also non-operating. Then you have the fourth one, the flare tower, which was supposed to burn the toxic gases to neutralize. It was also non-operative, and its connecting pipes were removed. Then there is this fire water spray system or water curtain, which was put to control escaping gases and also used for cooling the overheated equipments. This unit was functional. This unit was functional, but its height was not sufficient enough to reach top of the vent gas vent stack, and connecting pipes were also removed for maintenance. Between MIC storage tank and MIC holding tank in semen production area, there was a safety valve which was operating. This safety valve was designed to regulate MIC under normal or high pressure conditions, but this was operative, but the pipe which was attached to it was also removed. So this was the situation on that particular day. If you see, the refrigeration system was not working, vent gas scrubber was not working, flare tower was not working, and this MIC storage tanks, one was containing 40 tons, another was containing about 20 tons. Now, what exactly happened? Sorry. What exactly happened on ill-fated night of 2nd of December 1984 is still not very clear. But by summing up the sequence of events, the most postulated theory narrates that MIC was stored in three double-walled, partly buried stainless steel tanks having code numbers 610, 611, 619. And during the change of shift around 10:45 to 11 p.m., when the change of shift was there, one of the employees of fresh shift noticed that the pressure of the tank E610, which was containing 40 tons of methyl isocyanate, has increased to 10 psi, and which was 10 psi was the five-fold of the pressure recorded by his predecessor. This sudden increase in the pressure was dismissed and considered that there is some faulty pressure recording instrument. Then around 11:30, some of the workers noticed burning sensation and tears in their eyes. Few of them noticed a drip of liquid along with some yellowish white gas coming out of MIC structure. It was reported to supervisor on duty, who decided to deal with this leakage after the scheduled tea break, which was supposed to be at 12:15 a.m. At 12:30 a.m., after 20 minutes, when the tea break ended, the situation was even worse. The pressure in the tank E610 was indicating to its maximum, which was 55 psi, and its temperature was very high. Control room operator checked gauges on tank and found that the safety valve has been popped off. Tank was rumbling and heat was emanating from the tank. There was no sign of flow of caustic soda, which was supposed to be flown from vent gas scrubber, and a cloud of gas was escaping from the scrubber. Thus, MIC was now going directly to the atmosphere. All the three safety devices which were installed to prevent direct contact of MIC with atmosphere were malfunctioning and non-operative. By 12:40, the plant supervisor suspended operations of the MIC plant and turned on the in-plant and external toxic gas sirens. The fire water sprayers were used, but as I told you, water could not reach the gas cloud which was forming at the top of the scraper. It was insufficient in length. Due to failure of the refrigeration system, efforts to cool the tank E610 also failed. Thus, the escape of MIC gas into the atmosphere could not be stopped, and it continued for almost 2 hours. About 30 tons of MIC escaped from the tank into the atmosphere in just 45 to 60 minutes, while 2 hours, in next 2 hours, or in complete 2 hours, almost 40 tons of MIC passed into the atmosphere. The gas was blowing in the southeastern direction. That was the direction of the wind on that day. So it was blowing in southeastern direction over Bhopal. So this was the situation on the night till 12:40. Then it was around 1 a.m. when residents of nearby area were awakened by noise of siren, which was continuously blowing because the supervisor has put the siren, the external siren of the toxic gas. They were feeling difficulty in breathing. They were suffocating. They were coughing. They were feeling irritations. They were feeling irritations in their eyes and smelling some peculiar toxic odor of some gas. Workers which were inside the USIL, they also started evacuating the plant. Everybody was in panic. It started fleeing their houses. There was complete disarray amongst the general public. Everyone was confused and running on the streets just to get themselves away from the smell of the MIC. And unfortunately, this is one lesson one should learn, that unfortunately those who were trying to run faster were in fact inhaling more gas and victimizing early. Those who used vehicles were less affected than in fact those who were running on the street. By 1:30, the police superintendent of police was informed over phone by a town inspector that residents of neighborhood, the residents which are living nearby USIL plant are fleeing due to some gas leak. For a long time, USIL plant employees did not give any concrete information to police and gas authorities, and gas leak was considered of ammonia or phosgene. Even hospitals were not sure how to deal with this situation, as they never heard about this methyl isocyanate gas. They neither had any antidote for this, nor they could receive any immediate information to neutralize it. It was not the time of Google. Because this accident occurred in the late night, there was no professional disaster management team. And during early 19s, there was not much communication devices. Around 3 a.m., a retired Army brigadier requested the Army engineer units to help evacuating the workers from the factory and people residing near the USIL plant. And after few hours, when the daylight emerged, havoc was surrounded in this peaceful city. There were dead bodies of humans and animals on the ground. The city, Bhopal, the city government hospitals, Hamidia Hospital and its adjoining Gandhi Medical College, both were full with victims. Hundreds were lying inside, thousands lying outside on the grounds of these hospitals. It was indeed very difficult to identify whether the person was is dead or alive. People were shouting, crying, they were praying. Cremation grounds of different religions were full of dead bodies in the city. The city first time witnessed mass cremation and mass burial. There was pain, pain, and pain in the air of Bhopal. This is what the uh, here. This is the picture which I showed you. The Union Carbide industry was situated here, and air was uh, blowing on the uh, southern direction. And here you can see this is the most affected area where this gas leak happened. And I told you earlier that this is the lower lake and this is the new city. So new city was not much affected. It was the it was the old city which was heavily affected with this, and area which are near the railway station, and this is the bus stand, near the bus stand. And you can understand what would have been the situation near the Union Carbide plant, because Union Carbide plant, there were so many houses were there, and those were the all shanty towns, the what you call uh, juggies, which were installed there. This is the current situation of because the plant is sealed, a plant is not working, and this is the current situation. These are the current situation of the inside. Now let us talk about gas composition and acute effects of the gas. Now, since this gas or mixture of gases are heavier than air, that is why the gas was settling down towards the ground, resulting thereby maximum damage to the low-lying shanty town of nearby, situated particularly in the southern direction of this industry. Also, children and other shorter height people, they inhaled more gas or high concentration of gas, because the gas was tending to settle down. Later, during investigation, because there was a lot of confusion whether it is methyl cyanide or methyl isocyanate. So CSIR lab and Union Carbide scientists, they investigated and they found that there is no presence of hydrogen cyanide. So the confusion of presence of cyanide in the gas was also removed. Apart from methyl isocyanate, the gas cloud also contained chloroform, dichloromethane, hydrochloric acid, methylamine, dimethylamine, trimethylamine, carbon dioxide, and that was either present in the tank or was produced in the storage tank with MIC, chloroform, and water reaction. The initial effects of exposure were coughing, severe eye irritation, and feeling of suffocation, burning in the respiratory tracts, breathlessness, stomach pains, and vomiting. Thousands of people had died by the next morning, and primary cause of deaths were choking, reflexogenic circulatory collapse, and pulmonary edema. And findings during autopsy also revealed not only changes in the lungs, but also in cerebral edema, tuberal necrosis of the kidney, fatty degeneration of the liver, etc. The still birth rate increased by up to 300% in Bhopal, and neonatal mortality rate by around 200%. From 1985 to 1989, legal battle was there between UCC and the Government of India, and through a judgment of Supreme Court of India, a sum of 470 million dollars, that is 47 crore dollar, or about 900 crore of that time, because dollar cost was around rupees 20 in 1990. 84 this accident happened, and it took 5-6 years to settle down the cases, the legal battle. So this was paid around 900 crore rupees was paid by Union Carbide, UCC, to the government of India for all Bhopal gas leak related claims. However, uh, Indian and foreign activists groups, which were supporting Bhopal gas victims, they estimated the total damage, including loss of animals, loss of income from inability to work, loss of business in the weeks after the gas leakage, and related damages. They demanded $3 billion, that is about 300 crore rupees, 300 crore dollars, or about 6,000 crore rupees that time. In 1991, Indian Supreme Court further ordered to establish a new hospital in Bhopal to treat victims of their victims of gas for their health problems. Then a, a, a hospital called Bhopal Memorial Hospital and Research Center is operational in the city since 2001, and this hospital is equipped with all modern medical facilities. It provides complete free treatment to the victims of Bhopal gas tragedy. Now, almost 30 years have passed for this unfortunate incident. There is hardly anyone in Bhopal who does not have any acquaintance with a gas victim himself or a family of gas victim. Though I came to this Bhopal city in 1994, I'm almost 9 years later than this tragedy. I have many friends who themselves or their relatives have been victim of this man-made tragedy. Though the pain in their eyes has subsided, but I can still feel that the pain has percolated deep in their soul. Almost a generation has passed, and severely affected victims have departed or heavenly abode, while survivors want to forget the tragedy. My past 20 years association with this beautiful city reminds me about this tragedy twice in an year: on 2nd December, the tragedy anniversary, and 5th June, the World Environment Days. These are the days when articles on the gas tragedy pop up in the newspaper. Some articles are just obituaries, while few others are blame games. Blame game articles are by those people, particularly from NGOs, who do not want this issue to die down, maybe for their own benefit. A few of these NGO operators have also contested election in Bhopal, but they lost. And that indicates that Bhopalis, they want to forget this tragedy and love their city. Now, in conclusion, let me put my points, what the stakeholders learned and what care we should take in future. We all know development is the necessity of human race, and it is always wiser to learn lessons from the accidents rather stopping the development activities. Any disaster gives strong lesson to the mankind. It should not repeat again. Discoveries of developing science should be handled with, of course, utmost responsibility and disciplined governance. In chemical industries like USIL, where you deal with volatile poisonous chemicals, accidents are, of course, inevitable, but still their severities can be minimized and controlled by proper handling. In Bhopal also, death toll would have been much less if government machinery and USIL authorities would have been more vigilant, strict and responsive. Allowing the settlement of thick population cover around this sensitive industry, which was never been treated as sensitive as, as it finally proved, were surely one of the blunders of the government. When UCC and USIL were drawing financial gains from the development of science of hazardous materials, they should have been equally serious about their responsibility and governance. And the ignorance at their top managerial level cannot be denied. We should be highly concerned about the disaster management teams and their speedy responses. Had it been a better communicative Bhopal in 1984, some lives could surely be saved. But still, with a sensitive installation within the city, local administration should have been faster reactive, alert, and prepared for a toxic gas leak. I think authorities were not known about MIC and its hazardous consequences. Now we have learned lessons of the past and we are better connected. Therefore, no more industrial devastations, no more loss to the lives. That is what we can pray. My acknowledgement to NOM Publications for conceptualizing this concept of organizing academic talks through webinar, particularly in this difficult time. Thanks are due to Pavan Kumar for nicely organizing this event. Now, I thank you all and I leave you with this monument of Bhopal gas tragedy, which was sculptured by Ruth Waterman. And if you can see, it depicts a dead child in the arms of crying mother. And this sculpture is still standing on the footpath opposite to the closed USIL factory on the road on the other side of the road. You find this sculpture there, and this is one monument which is there. There's recently a museum, a small museum has also been uh, incepted in the city, but this is one monument which depicts the Bhopal gas tragedy. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, you can please ask.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Alok. That was very impactful talk. While we are going through your talk, it is like, the conceptualization was as if we are witnessing the tragedy. We have gone through the phases, and we can lively see what actually you have explained clearly. That was a very impactful talk. Yeah, hope there shouldn't be anything like this in future, because that is a very tragic thing. And there are a few questions while your lecture is going done. I have noted it down. One is from Dr. Surendra Kumar Yadav, and he's asking that, so do you agree that in both Bhopal as well as recent gas leaks are basically due to negligence? How shall the idea of 24-hour supervisor duty for all chemical industries in the country should be?
Dr. Yadav, you are absolutely right. About the recent accident, I don't want to comment much because it is under investigation, so I can't say what exactly happened. But what I can sense, my personal thinking, I may be wrong. What I can sense that if a plant is shut down for the maintenance or due to some other reason, it's when you restart it, you need to be much more careful, because a running plant, when the plant is running, of course every pipe and every screw, everything is under vigilance. So if it is shut down, and if it is shut down for quite a long time, then of course such type of problems happen, that people don't care much, or the restart is not so carefully done as it should have been. So in case of USIL Bhopal, of course this was a problem, that plant was put for the maintenance for almost 40 days, I told you. And in this case also in Vishakhapatnam, I can sense that, because there was some pressure from the people that we should start the manufacturing, and something like this happened. So I think it is because of the restart of the unit which caused the problem. And yes, maintenance is the major issue, of course.
Okay. And another question is from Yogesh Shambana. The question is about does LG Polymers tragedy in Vishakhapatnam has same future implications like Bhopal tragedy?
Yeah, I can't I can't say because the gas there is different. There is a styrene gas. So styrene is not as much toxic as methyl isocyanate. Of course, it is tax toxic. I'm not diluting, uh, and but still, we do not know how much gas has been leaked, how much tons of volume of the gas has been leaked, and we also do not know how much is the habitation around this industry. And so, at present, commenting on anything on the Vishakhapatnam tragedy is difficult. But yes, a tragedy is a tragedy. It should not be. It should not happen. And and of course, you can't compare the two because situation in 1984 and situation in 2020 are entirely different. 36, 37 years. Yes.
Yeah. The another question is, sir, the symptoms of this tragedy still occur.
Bhopal gas tragedy.
Yes, Bhopal
Yes,
gas
yes,
tragedy.
yes. Symptoms still occur. We have a hospital, I told you, and you find all Bhopal gas victims over there. Those who were young children, young boys, they have now grown up, but still there is a problem with them. And I told you that it is even given in the today's newspaper that in Bhopal so far there are about roughly around 800 or so victims of this COVID-19, and out of 800 or so, I think 410 have been recovered, 35 are dead, and all the 35 out of the 35 deaths, 20 are gas victims. So you can see, maybe I think those would be old age people who were almost 40 years of age at that time and now gone to 70 years, 74, 77 years. Yes.
Okay.
So still you can see lot of physiological and biological problems, or medical problems with the persons.
Okay. The another question is from Dr. Javed Nagmi. Incidence of cognitive anomalies, thyroid problem has shown a upward trend.
Uh,
It's like, yeah, please.
I am a chemist. I can't say about the medical problems which are occurring, why it is occurring. I can't say, but of course there have been there have been changes in the soil. I know Niri Nagpur has done a lot of studies on Bhopal gas after Bhopal gas tragedy. So they have done a lot of studies on fishes, on the soil, and if such type of thing, thyroid problem has the cases of thyroid problem has enhanced. So might be some physiological changes which happened after these chemical compounds.
Okay. The next question is from Arun Sharma. The question is, has its effect reached the human being by consuming water of upper lake?
Yeah, there was a lot of discussions on this issue. People were very scared initially, and and of course Niri was given the project of the water testing of this upper lake. But as I told you, the direction of the wind was not towards this lake, but lake in fact helped a lot in diluting the gas effect afterwards. So for initial period of time, of course, yes, there have been, and people were quite scared of drinking lake water. But later on, it's not now. We can't find any problem. We can't find any traces of the cyanide or traces of the, because these all compounds might have been, you know, decompose or convert it into other products. Yes.
The next question is like, has this gas led to increase in cerebral palsy cases?
Uh, I really don't know much about it, but yes, I told some of the problems, pulmonary diseases were there. Lot of diseases related to lungs were there. So I'm not very conversant with this medical terms. So sorry, I can't.
Next question is, what is fine volatile matter in gas?
What is fine volatile matter? Sorry, I couldn't understand the question.
What is fine volatile matter in gas? I mean, the question might be like, how much of volatile matter is in gas was found, I guess so.
No, no, gas itself is volatile. So
Yeah, I'm not sure about the question too.
yeah, gas is volatile
Yeah,
only.
so
Gas is the one which
yes,
is.
exactly.
There may be some
The next,
particles. Yeah.
yeah, next question is, many times there is a news that residues present in the UCIL plant still exist there in the
Yes.
soil. The government is planning to recycle it, but nothing has been done in last 35 years.
Yes. You are absolutely right. And there is a there is a committee of which deal with hazardous materials of the state, and I have been a member of this. So this project was given to Niri Nagpur, and I really can't comment on that. But the residue is still lying in the plant. It is untouched. Nobody is touching it. And long back, when Chief Secretary invited, they called this meeting, and he invited all the people. And his main question was, I still remember that he asked that if suppose some problem occurs, suppose flood comes, suppose there is some earthquake in Bhopal, or there is some leakage of water from somewhere and it enters there in the industry, and then it will spread. So what will happen? And I think everybody was silent. So I really don't know that it has been removed or still lying. And to best of my knowledge, it is still lying. And I think Pollution Control Board must be taking care of it.
And next question is, nervous system also being affected to the residents of Bhopal?
Yeah, with this, yes, of course, nervous system was affected. Neurological problems, not neurological disorders were there.
Next, how we can defeat these bad events?
Yeah, I told you in the in my conclusions that we can deal. We have to be careful, particularly when you are dealing with hazardous chemicals. Obviously, you are supposed to be very vigilant, and you are supposed to be very careful, and you have to follow all the strict guidelines which government issues while the industry is under operation. So yes, these type of problems should not occur. Of course, when you are dealing with hazardous materials, they are supposed to occur, but unfortunately it occurs. But should be dealt very swiftly with the disaster management team, and should be dealt very strictly by the government. And any guideline which has been issued by any agency should not be ignored. So that is what should be, what should, and that is the responsibility of the management of the industry, and of course the unit of government which looks after the such type of industry.
And next question is, how far the air and water bodies near to these areas will be poisonous?
Pardon?
Uh, how uh, how far the air and water bodies near to these areas will be poisonous?
How far will be poisonous?
In the
I
sense
didn't
like how
understand.
long, I mean, how long the
How
air and
long
water bodies.
this? I think the effect remained for several years. Traces were there, but the immediate effect was so high. The immediate impact was so high that the impacts which were later were were meaningless, I should say. So, but of
Yeah.
course, this remained for quite a long period of time. This, particularly in
Okay.
the nearby area, to the soil, as well as, of course, air pollution was reduced in maybe 15-20 days, but the soil pollution and the water pollution, that remained for quite a long period of time.
Okay. And next question is, respected sir, carbamates pesticides like Sevin is as toxic as intermediate MIC, which was used for this its production.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. And yeah, those were the questions. I guess I have gone through all the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there are any questions, please do post it in the questions column or in the chat option, or you can also raise your hand so that you will be available to speak to Dr. Mittal. So if there are no questions, we will end the session. As for we have already answered all the questions, I guess. I see no more questions further.
So thank you very much, everyone. I have given 3 talks, and soon we
Yes.
will be having another talk. And I also, because if I also want to say that if anybody wants that any talk should be repeated, so at least you can send an email to the organizer of this event.
Yes. Yes.
So email, if you can give, then we can also decide to reconduct the talk. And soon we will be having another talk, maybe next week or so, and that will be on probably on lubricants. So
Okay.
a talk on lubricants, about their usage, about their chemistry and all, that will be on, that is in the pipeline.
Okay. Sure. That was
So thank
great.
you very much. Thank you very much. I thank everyone who joined this lecture and who joined other lectures as well. I thank everyone for their support. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot to Dr. Mittal for his continuous talks in this situation and providing an insightful thoughts and also impactful talks to all the members. I would like to thank Dr. Mittal and also all the attendees for sparing their time to attend the session. And yeah, please do consider known publications for your upcoming submissions. We would be happy to process your submissions and guide for the any related publication related services. Thanks a lot, and I'm concluding and ending the session at this moment. Thanks a lot.
Thank